Located in Susanville, California, High Desert State Prison, which first opened its doors in 1995, is now home to some 3,300 max security inmates. Back on November 26, 2024, at approximately 6:13 p.m., HDSP staff would observe incarcerated individual Zachary Barron attacking fellow incarcerated individual Juan Linares. Barron was using an improvised weapon to stab Linares multiple times, and although officers were able to stop the attack, and Linares would be immediately transported to the institution's correctional treatment center, he was pronounced deceased at 7:09 p.m.
Angeles County and state prisons are tightening security after a surge in violence. The state prison system says level 4 high security sections will move to a modified program starting Saturday after multiple incidents, including an inmate homicide in LA County. The program limits movement, visits, and calls while keeping essential services available. CDCR says meals will be delivered to housing units and movement will be controlled. Officials say that restrictions will stay in place until the investigation is complete.
Welcome inside the California Institute for Men at Chino. This is home to convicted felons, many of whom hail from Orange County. It's an impersonal place, even threatening to the uninitiated, and gang activity is alive, even in this strictly disciplined environment. Normal routine at Chino allows prisoners only 10 hours of outside activity each week. That means working out, baseball, and hours of circling the compound under the watchful eyes of the armed guard in the tower. Indoors, inmates are restricted to cell blocks where two men may live in a room the size of a small bathroom. Contact is reduced to shouts from one cell to another, and meals are served directly to the cell to reduce movement in confined spaces. Chino was built in 1941 to hold about 2,500 men. Nearly 50 years later, it holds 6,000, 2.5 times its intent capacity. The overcrowding leads to unnatural stresses.
Of course, the inmates are strained on the fact that they are housed sometimes in day rooms, card rooms, gymnasiums, open dorm settings.
While prison officials recognize that they have far exceeded the capacity of design, they feel their hands are tied by the courts.
We just start taking them in as the courts present them to us.
This may be an immediate solution for keeping criminals off the street, argue criminologists, but they say it does very little in terms of preparing a convict for his return to society.
And I have a feel for how the victims, the hostility they feel, want to punish them, more prisons and so forth. Not doing very much. I feel that hostility too. I'd like to do something to them, but in terms of what it accomplished for society, is not very much.
Instead, supporters of this philosophy argue that prisons exist strictly for punishment and say that doesn't protect society.
No matter what you do, it's not enough because we want to punish them, so more prisons and so forth. So that's another thing you have to handle in society. What are productive ways to go rather than more and more prisons? We need it for vindictiveness, but in terms of reality, it is not producing the effects we want.
And the Santa Ana police chief agrees that prisons don't work.
It's really a failure, I think. When that's the only recourse you have, then you've failed as a society.
In fact, Paul Walters is willing to send adults to jail, but he says he and his department are now committing much of their combined resource towards keeping people out of the system, beginning when they're teenagers.
What we do is when the first time they get involved is we really support a diversion program. First-time offenders, it's done in Spanish and English. It's called a Short Stop program, and that whole thing is to make them realize what their life's going to be like if they continue.
Short Stop is one of two alternative programs that we'll take a look at in our next report about crime and punishment in Orange County. Peter Murphy.
In San Bernardino, where police say they've put a major dent in deadly gang activity there, making dozens of arrests. Authorities say the sweep was in response to the growing gang activity in the city.
Yeah, San Bernardino has been hit hard. Police say the gangs are responsible for more than 50 murders this year alone. KTLA5's Chris Wolf joins us live from San Bernardino with more on the multi-agency sweep. Hi, Chris.
Hello, Court and Rick. Good evening, everybody. The San Bernardino Police Department is the lead agency in this gang sweep, but they did not work alone to clean up the streets. This was a multi-agency effort called SMASH. SMASH stands for San Bernardino Movement Against Street Hoodlums, It happened last night. The operation included law enforcement personnel from the San Bernardino Police Department, San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, and officers from Rialto, Redlands, Fontana School Police, and Upland Police, to name just some of the participants. They all converged in the city of San Bernardino to hit the streets and round up criminal suspects. Police Chief Darren Goodman says the sweep was in response to increasing gang activity in the community. In fact, he says recently an innocent 8-year-old girl was shot in the face by gang members as she was playing in front of her home. Several murders in the city have been gang-related. The final tally from the latest smash operation: 30 felony arrests, 12 misdemeanor arrests, 16 firearms seized, as well as drugs, including methamphetamine, cocaine, and a large amount of PCP. Authorities also recovered 2 stolen vehicles.
Our department has taken an aggressive approach toward violent crime. We are going to be hosting many of these proactive sweeps where we're having officers, again, from multiple agencies that are coming out into our city and helping us to try to eliminate some of the bad guys from the streets. We are sending our gang units out into the streets to try to arrest as many of these gang members as possible. Many of them are being arrested for narcotics, for firearms, and for probation violations, for parole violations. So there's various different charges that we're arresting these gentlemen for tonight.
What's going on, you guys? Welcome back. Another episode of Green Lit Gang TV. Much love, much appreciation. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to check out the channel today, check out the video. If you are new to the platform, welcome. As I say in recovery, the new person is always the most important person in the room. I thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I really hope you enjoy it. And if you do, take another, 15, 20 minutes, check out some of my other videos. I think you'll enjoy them. If you are a returning individual, returning member to my platform, to my channel, then you already know how much you mean to me as a regular viewer. I am nothing without the continued support that I receive from you guys. So thank you. If you like what you see, if you like what you hear, hit the like button, hit the comment button, engage in some conversation. And lastly, please subscribe, because you already know how much it means to me. But only do it if you like it. Don't do it because I'm asking. Do it if you truly like what you're listening to and what you're watching. So with that being said, we're going to be sticking with the same theme that we have so far in 2025. That is covering the absolute chaos that continues to plague the CDCR, better known as the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. This story is about 8-9 months old, from the end of November in 2024 at the High Desert State Prison, a prison that we have covered frequently and often in this channel series, in this series that we've done so far in 2025. So let's jump right into it here. California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation officials are investigating the November 26, 2024 death of an incarcerated person at High Desert State Prison as a homicide. At approximately 6:13 p.m., HDSP staff would observe incarcerated person Zachary Barron attacking incarcerated person Juan Linares. Barron used an improvised weapon to stab Linares multiple times. Officers responded and quelled the attack. These were both Sureno gang members. I got some good background information on both of them, so we'll get into that in just a minute. Linares was immediately transported to the institution's correctional treatment center for advanced medical care. However, his condition worsened, requiring life-saving measures, including CPR and wound care by correctional officer and medical staff. Despite their efforts, Linares was pronounced deceased at 7:09 p.m. by a physician at an outside hospital. Linares, 44 years old at the time of his death, was received by CDCR from Alameda County on October 20th, 2009 to serve 36 years to life for second-degree murder. Barron was received by CDCR from San Bernardino County on December 5th, 2019 to serve, kind of interesting sentence here, 14 years to life for first-degree murder. He has been placed in restricted housing while the incident is under investigation. The HDSP Investigative Services Unit and the Lassen County District Attorney's Office are conducting investigations into this incident. The Office of the Inspector General has been notified, and the Lassen County Coroner will determine Linares' official cause of death. Okay, so both Sureno gang members, Juan Linares, he'd been down for a while. He committed his crime in 2007. He went away in 2009. I found an article of his This is back in 2011 when he had filed an additional appeal, right? So you get convicted, you get sentenced, then the appeal process is going to start. You're going to start planting your appeals, try to get maybe your case reviewed, try to get time off, maybe get a whole new trial, which rarely happens. But in this case, this is an article from May 11th, 2011, on an appeal that Juan Linares would file. Los Angeles. The California Supreme Court refused today to consider the case of a man who was convicted of fatally shooting his girlfriend outside an Alhambra motel. Now, I do want to clear that up because Juan Linares, it said he was from Alhambra, and it said, and I have to reread this stuff, I have to double check this stuff, but it said he was received from Alameda County. That doesn't always mean that that's where they're from. When it says where they're received from, that doesn't always mean that's their hometown. So he's from Alhambra. The shooting happens outside of a motel, probably not the nicest motel. The state's highest court denied a defense petition seeking review of the case against Juan Manuel Linares, who was convicted of second-degree murder for the July 1st, 2007 slaying of 20-year-old Yesenia Macias in a parking lot outside of the Townhouse Motel. In February, a three-justice panel from California's Second District Court of Appeal rejected Linares' claim that there were errors in his trial. And this is kind of going into some of the facts of the case. Someone heard an argument, then a gunshot and car tire screeching. They then called police, according to the appellate court's panel February 8th ruling. Police found no evidence of a crime at the motel because Linares had driven Macias to an East Los Angeles hospital, according to the court's opinion. Linares told investigators he was in his vehicle when he heard a bang and looked over and realized Macias had been shot, the justices wrote. Macias was declared dead that night. She and Linares, who was married, had worked together at a recycling company, according to the court. Quote, there was no evidence presented that the killing was unintentional, the appellate court panel wrote in the ruling, which rejected the defense's contention that jurors should have been instructed on voluntary manslaughter. So kind of like what we just said. Trying to get them to reconsider not throwing out the complete case, but saying, hey, instead of a murder conviction, a voluntary manslaughter, which completely changes the sentencing guidelines. Linares was sentenced to 40 years to life in prison, but the appellate court panel found that an additional 5 years that was not included by the judge in the original sentence must be added to the term because he had a robbery conviction back in 1998. And then reading more on this, it basically said that after the shooting took place, Linares initially was not looked at as the main suspect. He was actually in the police he was at the police station, he's interviewing, he's talking, and they're looking at him as a witness until he starts divulging these details, right? So he's saying all this stuff, yeah, I heard this gunshot, I heard this. Well, then as he's doing this, as he's down there talking to him, witness accounts are coming in. People that saw everything happen, that put him at the scene, that put him as the shooter. And the people that are interviewing him are getting this information in from other law enforcement. And then, the tone changes, and before he knows it, he's being charged with Yesenia Macias' murder. So I thought that was really interesting. But yeah, that's how he got his murder conviction. Okay, so Zachary Barron. This is an article from May 22nd, 2015 out of Victorville. Homicide detectives recovered the remains of 34-year-old Jimmy Alberto Felix and arrested he was only 23 at the time, Zachary Barron of Victorville for his murder. According to authorities, sheriff's homicides investigators continued to follow leads this week regarding the disappearance of Alberto Jimmy Felix. On Thursday, May 21st, 2015, investigators served a search warrant at an Apple Valley home and upon further investigation were led to the desert area in the northwest area of the town of Apple Valley, where they located a shallow grave containing unidentified human remains. On Friday, May 22nd, 2015, the remains were recovered and positively identified as Alberto Felix. An autopsy will be conducted to determine the cause of death. Homicide investigators arrested Zachary Barron for the murder of Alberto Felix. Barron is being held at the High Desert Detention Center without bail. And then I went a little further. I was able to get a timeline, kind of to give you guys an idea. March 15th, 2015, Alberto Jimmy Felix's family hears from him for what will end up being the last time. March 17th, 2015, Felix is reported missing to San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department deputies in Victorville around 9 a.m. March 18th, 2015, sheriff's investigators are seen searching a home in the 14,300 block of Cactus Drive in Victorville. I think I said that wrong. March 19th, 2015, neighbors tell reporters that they believed there was a fight at the home on March 14th or early into the morning of March 15th. Now fast forward, May 13th, 2015, authorities announced that they believe Felix was murdered. May 18th, 2015, the body of a, quote, severely dehydrated Hispanic man is found in the open desert northwest of Wild Wash Road in Interstate 15. The body is later determined not to be related to Felix. May 21st, 2015, sheriff deputies serve a search warrant at an Apple Valley home and are led to northwest Apple Valley, where they find human remains in a shallow grave. Zachary Stephen Barron, 23 of Victorville, is arrested around 11 p.m. in Apple Valley in connection to the murder. May 22nd, 2015, sheriff's officials announced that the remains found on the 21st are indeed Felix's. The remains are turned over to the coroner's officials for an autopsy. May 26, 2015, Barron is expected to be arraigned on a murder charge at 12:30 p.m. in Victorville. Crazy, man. Sad endings for both individuals. They get locked up for very long sentences. And then Zachary Barron, for whatever reason, decided to take out Juan Linares by using a homemade weapon. And I don't always touch on it, but I try to as often as I can, guys. I talk about recovery a lot in my channel. I talk about sobriety. And I think it's important to. Sometimes I get comments that, man, why do you talk about it? And it's like, my honest answer is I will never not talk about it. And I get a lot of really good feedback. If you follow my channel at all, I had 5 years on March 10th of this year. 10 plus year opiate addict, Xanax, cocaine, all that came into play. My main drug of choice was opiates, and it ravaged my life. It ravaged the people's lives around me. It took everything I had and then some. Spent many of holidays in institutions, jails. I spent Christmas of 2016 in a detox facility. You name it, I've been through it. And I hear these stories and I read these cases and I read these news articles, and I'm not saying drugs always plays a part. I'm not. I do think it plays a major role in a lot of people that are locked up currently in our jails and in our prisons. And that's data-based. That's actually factually backed up. So I just try to spread the message of it's never too late. If you are going down the wrong road, if you are struggling with addiction, if you're struggling with mental health, reach out, get the help. One day at a time. I'm a firm believer in one day at a time. I'm a firm believer in it's really never too late. And that sounds so cliche and so dumb. And I remember when I was in the middle of my addiction, I would hear stuff like that and I would literally just want to scream because I'd be like, I'm just trying to get well, man, let alone listen to your motivational speeches. But if you can get yourself straightened out enough to just start taking one day at a time and start doing the little things right, I think it's worth it. And I just want to leave you guys with that. So anyway, much love. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch the video. And until next time, you already know what it is. Peace.